Greetings. Greetings. Thank you for joining me. My name is Antonio Alacina, aka the Day Walker. You're now tuning in to Masculine Militia. I am, of course, your host. And I wanted to talk about a few things today. One of which, mainly the shooting that happened in Buffalo with the white supremacists. I want to talk about that a little bit. I want to point out some things because the media, even the President Biden today, or it was yesterday, he wants to make it seem as if, white supremacy is some new deal. He's talking about, there's no place for it in America, and all this kind of stuff. I mean, we should know by now that white supremacy is as American as apple pie and baseball. We should know that. We should know that white supremacy is not some fringe concept. Because from the government to the common white person, white supremacy is it's as natural as air. It's as natural as air. The government of the United States has been white supremacist since its inception. I mean, can somebody tell me when it stopped? When did the government of America, when did the United States government, when did the Western powers stop the idea, the implementation of laws and rules that are steeped in white supremacy ideology? When did it stop? Can somebody tell me? I mean, because of course there was this thing called slavery in America and in the West. And the idea of white supremacy is woven into the fabric of America, the West, and I'll say the world. This guy, his name was, what is his name? White supremacist. Peyton Gendron or something like that. This guy. He is the latest face of white supremacy. He's the latest face of white supremacy in terms of white terror. White supremacy is not simply the hate that white people common white people in America have for black people, and not just that or the idea that white is superior in every fashion. That's not just the common white people. The thing that I think that black people need to learn, need to understand, is that white supremacy is a part of America. It's like breathing. In fact, it's the actual oxygen of America, of the West, the Western powers. As we know, as many of us know right now, this young man, I'm going to call him a young man, 18 years old, went into a grocery store in Buffalo, New York, and killed as many as 10 black people. 10 black people. And there is this trope that has been propagated that some of us are now just really paying attention to. I mean, some of us, not me, others. I know a lot of people are just paying attention to it. And it's being propagated and promoted and popularized even more so by Tucker Carlson of Fox News. They're calling it the replacement theory. Okay? White people, Caucasian people, I don't really like calling them white, but I do because it's, kind of the terms that we use to describe them, but they're not white. They chose the word white because white is looked at as the word that represents purity. They're not white. So the Caucasian in America has decided, not just recently, a long time ago, that he must protect himself. There is an embedded, deeply ingrained fear that white people have of black people, and a lot of us are like, why? Like, why? Why do they hate us? That's because we don't really know who they are, what their origin is. They have done a terrific job at making sure that not only that we don't know, but they keep that knowledge hidden or make it very esoteric. Make it so when you start learning something about your blackness, that it's really some type of secret, some hidden secret or something. So the Caucasian rule of this planet for the last almost a little over 6,000 years has made sure to make his story just that, his story. We don't get to have data collected for us to analyze of the past readily available. There has been an effort to turn black, white, black, up, down, up, left, right, left, to make things basically the opposite of what they actually are. So when it comes to white people and their fear of us, this is what the hatred that they have of us is based on. It's based on fear. They are afraid of us. And guess what? They should be. Yeah, I know. They should be afraid. Understand something. They are ingrained with a deep fear of us because everything that we have in us is meant to rule, is meant to be dominant. And sometimes I know we don't want to take that kind of track on things, because we have the view, where everybody needs to be equal. We don't live in a world like that. We are at war. But guess what? Black people are not at war with white people, though. White people are at war with us, but we're not at war back with them. So in that type of dynamic, guess who loses? Us. So I'm going to get into why they are afraid. There's this thing now they're calling the replacement theory. Because white supremacists today, Dallin Roof, this recent one, and the guys at Charlottesville, they're all chanting this and they're all saying this. They're not going to let us replace them. What do they mean? It's not simply about numbers, but it is about numbers. It's not simply about taking jobs and things of that nature from them. No. They understand that nature is causing their disappearance from the planet. This has been something that they have known for hundreds of years. Not just decades, hundreds of years. But I'm gonna put it like this here. Let's just go back to a time recent where we can see their thinking on this. Okay? This right here is a cover from 1960. 1960. I'm sorry. Not this one. This is not 1960. This is not 1961. My apologies. This is 1985. This is the 1985 Time Magazine edition. In fact, it says Special Immigrants issue. The Changing Face of America. This is in 1985. In fact, this recent white supremacist who did the shooting in Buffalo, he wasn't even born. Probably didn't even thought about. 1985. This is the cover. Special Immigrants Issue, The Changing Face of America. The understanding that black and brown people are outnumbering or scheduled to outnumber Caucasian people, not only in America, but around the world. First of all, white people, Caucasian people are a minority around the world. America is the center of white power. It's the center of white supremacy. There's nowhere in the world, all over the world, if we put all the numbers together, white people are the minority. But in America, white people are the supposed majority. Okay? Yet this issue of their waning majority has been around for decades. Not just 1985. This is just an issue talking about the changing face of America, the special immigrants issue. This is immigrants issue. This is talking about people coming in, mainly people of color. Mainly people of color. In fact, there have been books written about the changing color demographics in America. There have been several books written about that. And I mean, not just lately. This has been going on for decades. For decades. And when I say books, I mean, you have books by black and white that have written books on the browning of America. In fact, there was a book actually called, there were a couple of books actually called The Browning of America. The Browning of America. So when it comes to white supremacy, white supremacists, when they say, you know, you're not going to replace us, you're not going to replace us, what they're talking about is America's changing colors. This is a 1990 Time magazine cover. Now, I just showed you an immigrant cover from 1985. This is 1990. What will the U.S. be like when whites are no longer the majority? These are the questions that white people have been asking. This level of white people. Because white people high up in government, above government, they've been asked this question, they've answered the question, and they've come up with a solution to the issue. They've come up with solutions to the issue. The solutions that they've come up with, see, they're not solutions that say, everybody know. They didn't tell all the rest of the common white people what the solutions are. They have select people in government. They have select people in non-governmental organizations, select groups, where they come up with solutions for problems. The black and brown issue is a problem for white people. Here you are having a majority of white people. They have ruled the economy, they have ruled the institutions, all of them. They have ruled politics, all of them, all of it. They have all of the power. And they're being threatened with being removed from that simply because of the population changes. They will not replace us. They will not replace us. That's the mantra. They will not replace us. They meaning black and brown people. I heard some people say, they say about Jews too. And when this guy was walking through shooting people in the grocery store, he had a camera on. He came upon a white person. He came upon the white person and said, "Oh, sorry." How did he know that white person wasn't a Jew? He doesn't. He didn't. Because Judaism, one, is a religion. However, it intersects with some cultural and ethnicity and stuff like that. But the Jews that we know of today are basically Caucasian. You wouldn't know them from any other white person. So why call out the Jews as not replacing you? The Jews and black people have had this so-called relationship, but if you study history, it's been a slave-master relationship. It hadn't been equal. It still isn't. So why would these white supremacists call out Jews? He says they shall not replace us. They will not replace us. And then you have Tucker Carlson on television talking the same talk. The same talk. They will not replace us. The replacement theory, they call it. They call it the replacement theory. So this is a so-called theory that is a part of the passion of white supremacy. It is a motivator for them. Because replacing them as the rulers ultimately is not something that they are going to allow. And like I said, it's just not the common white supremacist with a gun. This is all the way from the government, the highest point of government, and even above government. They see, they know this. This is what they see. Our esteemed sister who died a couple of years ago, Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, she wrote a book. It was a collection of writings called the ISIS Papers. In the ISIS Papers, as a part of her study, she was a brilliant and gifted queen. She said, and it remains true, she said that white people have a fear of genetic annihilation. That white people have a fear of genetic annihilation. That the very nature of them is their fear of being annihilated. And the greatest weapon on the planet to annihilate them is the black sperm, the black penis. We will breed them out of existence. And they know that. They know that. So they've had a concern. They've had a concern that says, we will not be replaced. They don't have any other weapon except the gun. Well, wait a minute, I misspoke. They have drugs. They have chemicals in the food, in the water, in the air, medicines, vaccines. They have all of these things. And guns. Their greatest weapon is the ignorance of the people that they're at war against. They have those weapons. The common white supremacist has the weapon of the gun. He has the gun. They are concerned. Now, I just showed you a 1990 cover, The Changing Colors. See, as Time Magazine was the premier news organization for many years, it looks like they're just talking about what's going on, as if they're just reporting what's happening in America. No, they were sending out warnings. They had the 1985 one, right? But they had others. I think I can go back to 1960. But they had others where they began to talk about the browning of America. I just showed you the 1990 America's Changing Colors. What will the U.S. be like when whites are no longer the majority? This is what they said. That was in 1990. Now check this out. 1993. The new face of America. This is just 3 years later from the previous article, Time magazine cover, talking about changing colors and what will the U.S. be like when white people are no longer the majority. 3 years later, this is the new face of America, they say. It's a woman of color. How immigrants are shaping the world's first multicultural society. Now, this is what they call it, multicultural. It's not multicultural. Well, excuse me. It is multicultural, but that don't include white people. They're saying multicultural is more. It's kind of like a Puff the Magic Dragon or something. I don't know if y'all remember Puff the Magic Dragon. It's kind of like, it's a facade, multiculturalism. How immigrants are shaping the world's first multicultural society. Man, listen, they're sending out warnings to white people. This is what that is. Because you got to understand, the media is the propaganda arm of white supremacy. I know a lot of us want to trust the media. You can get little kernels from them every now and then, but it's so structured and they lie all the time. All the time. So, here we are, the new face of America. This is what it says on the cover. Take a good look at this woman. She was created by a computer from a mix of several races. What you see is a remarkable preview of the new face of America. Now look at this woman. She was taken from a whole lot of, guess what? That's a black woman. Basically, brown-skinned black woman. They say they don't want to be replaced. This is what they're talking about. This is what they're talking about. They don't want to be replaced. Guess what? You know we understand not wanting to be annihilated, right? Who wants to be annihilated? These people have done everything that they can to not be annihilated. Not because we're out to kill them, because we aren't. Black people are not out here running down on white people and killing them. That's not what's happening. Black people not out here trying to kill white people going and stuff. We're not doing that. We're not targeting white people. They say they shall not replace us. What are they talking about? This is what they're talking about. They're talking about nature causing us to live and them to die. White world population, white people, world population is at negative, I believe is -2. That means that 3 black or brown babies are born before 1 white person. That's right. We're outpacing them. They, of course, hate it, but they are afraid. They are afraid of it. It's not that they just hate us, The fear can cause you to think and act irrationally. But their irrationality has been normalized in the world. In fact, check this out. They are saying that they're asking the question, as they always do when some white person does something heinous. They're asking about his mental health. And of course, we know if it was a black person, a black man that had done the same thing, whether he had killed black or white people, they would not be talking about his mental health. That would not be a question. That would not be something that they would have a question about. Not at all. So when they say we will not be replaced, they will not replace us. They will not replace us. Fox News is already calling, Tucker Carlson is already calling the shooter mentally ill. Mentally ill shooter wrote a 180-page letter. Tucker Carlson says Buffalo's suspect's alleged screed is not really political. Well, you know what? Me and Tucker Carlson can agree on that. Because politics is a sham. Republicans, Democrats, one coin, 2 sides. I live in Atlanta. If I was at the airport and I said to you, listen, let's go to Lenox. And you say, all right, you take 85 and I take Peachtree Street. That's Republicans and Democrats. They argue with each other about which route to take to get to white supremacy, to maintain power under white supremacy. They have disagreement on that. The aim is white supremacy. The aim is white dominance. The aim is to make sure that white people stay being the rulers forever. There's this saying talking about, I've heard somebody say, no, it was black people. Power concedes nothing without a demand. That's a lie. Power concedes nothing. Power concedes nothing. Power don't concede nothing. They got us with this crazy power does not concede anything. You can demand all you want. You can demand all you want. Demand as much as you want. Power concedes nothing. Demand all you want. So Tucker Carlson, he's talking about the replacement theory. And the interesting thing about people like him and others like him, as well as the politicians, presidents, whoever, they use words that what they're doing is they're talking to people who have already been indoctrinated enough to trust them and give them the benefit of the doubt. And then you have some who have beliefs in things like equality and justice and fairness. So you have black people who are like that, who believe in fairness and justice. And sometimes we can see white people doing the most unjust, heinous things. But what we'll do is we apply justice to them in a way that they don't deserve. Or you shouldn't say that about all white people. Listen, man. Like Muhammad Ali said one time, if there were a bunch of snakes coming at me, a bunch of cobras coming down here at me, I'm not trying to figure out which one of the cobras is not going to strike. If a bunch of lions come, I'm not trying to figure out which lion is not going to eat me. That's not what I'm doing. All I'm doing is trying my best to get away from those lions. And the thing about us as black people is we want to just believe that these people who have been devouring us all this time, somehow, some of them are on our side. And guess what? There may be a small minority of white people who have rejected the mind of white supremacy. And in fact, I'm sure that there are some. But those people, they're not in power. The people that are in power, the people that make the laws, the rules, that have made the policies that govern how black people are dealt with in every sector, in every institution, the fabric of America, white supremacy? No. Those people, you ain't met those people. Even this guy. He's just a tool. Because the common white person figures they have to defend themselves. They have to defend themselves, but they're defending themselves from annihilation. Not because we're at war with them, not because we're going to try to attack them. None of that. Their gripe is really with God. I know. When I say God, I'm talking about whatever source, the creator that you may believe in, that source, that's who white people are actually angry at. Because they, by nature, do not have in them that which will sustain their life forever in this universe or on this planet. They don't have it. The dominant gene of the black man, if you're a black person, you have a child with a white person, that white person has disappeared. Because we have the dominant gene. They have the recessive. And of course, you might carry some recessive traits of your parent, but you ain't, I'm sorry. Sorry. That white person gone. I know people like, I'm mixed. No, you ain't. Not really. Not really mixed. You black. Hell, if you're a Latino or Asian and you have a child with a white person, that white person is gone. They're not here anymore. And what we don't know that as black people, really. A lot of us don't. But these people, they know. They say you will not, y'all not going to replace us. They're not talking about jobs. They're talking about population. because we're outbreeding them. And when we have children with one of them, they're gone. They're not here anymore. They understand that. They understand that. They know. There was a man, his name was Pat Buchanan. Some of you may know him. He worked for Ford, Nixon, and Reagan. He ran for president. He was a commentator on Fox News and I think CNN and MSNBC. He's been all over. He wrote a book, a book of which many white people have written like this, but I'm pointing him out. It's called The Death of the West. This is what it says. The title of the book, title of the book is in reference to Oswald Spenger's Decline of the West. Buchanan argues that the culture that produced Western civilization as traditionally understood is in its death throes in the United States, which will no longer be a Western country by the year 2050. Now, this is now guess what? He wrote this book. I know this book was written 2000, something like that. Because I know it was around that time when I got it. And he was only one of many white people. I mean, this is how white people have seen. The conservatives see population, and their response to it is more radical because they are not necessarily out to control the population in the same fashion. See, they want a physical control. The Democrats want a kind of spiritual control. They want to control you mentally. So they talk to you nice, promise you this, throw you a little this and that, and then keep on going towards white supremacy. Conservatives, they're not so much. Not so much. They're gonna do as much as they can for white people, and in the process, some black people get something, fine, but they want to control. They want the physical control. So if you'll notice, they are very physical. They're very physical. Whether it be the military, the government, the police, when you have a conservative administration, they're very physical. The liberals, see, they very, they doing the same thing as the conservatives, but they're doing it differently. So we think somehow that they're different. The death of the West. It continues by saying, he uses United Nations population statistics to analyze the recent trends in global populations, especially major declines in European nations and major increases in Asia, Africa, and Latin America. These people are afraid, man. They are afraid. Even the common white person who doesn't consider themselves racist, racist or white supremacist, the common white person, they're afraid of us in a few dimensions. What they get indoctrinated with about us, it causes them to see us a certain way. And then there's a part of them that is really afraid of us innately because we're our energy, everything about us is dominant. Our genetic dominance is the most lethal. So that has to be stopped. And they've been doing a pretty good job. They've been doing a pretty good job. But even with all the things that they're doing, they're still not stopping us. This is from Wikipedia, by the way. Buchanan argues that the United States has a nation within a nation already. The population of 30 million foreign-born, of which 11 million are illegal aliens, according in parentheses, is larger than the entire population of Rhode Island, Massachusetts, and Connecticut. Buchanan argues that the counterculture of the 1960s has become the dominant culture which aims to rewrite American history and dismantle its heritage. See, this is what they're doing. They do not want the history of America as told and written by liars, by white supremacists. They don't want that dismantled. They don't want that dismantled. They don't want it dismantled at all. So they do everything that they can to make sure in every institution in the world, they want to make sure that they continue and they feed the basis of their rule, the foundation of their rule, and that is the idea of white supremacy. It goes on. Boy. He says, in his opinion, this is a hostile culture. This is a hostile culture which regards Western civilization with, listen, these people, when they say Western civilization, they're talking about white civilization. You know this. Western civilization equals white civilization. Western civilization equals white civilization. That's what they're saying. So when he's talking about Western civilization, please know that he's talking about white people. He's saying we don't respect Western civilization and that we can just dismantle it. We don't care. He ain't talking about white people. He's talking about black and brown people. It goes on. Whew. A new generation has now grown up for whom the Cultural Revolution is not a revolution at all, but the culture they were born into and have known all their lives. He sees the new culture as being intolerant towards those of differing beliefs and determined to impose political correctness. See, what that's saying is, when he said, see, he makes it seem like everybody is involved in this differing beliefs. Like there's a culture of people saying, we're not into, certain things. So, so they're saying they have intolerance to differing beliefs. That differing beliefs that he's talking about is not what many of us as black and brown people, when we have our discussions among each other about beliefs. The beliefs he's talking about is white supremacy. And that is the way he's framing that is to make it so it can soften how white supremacy is viewed. How white supremacy is viewed. They want you to look at it and be like, hey, we don't hate, we don't this. They got something called an alt-right now. The way the manifestations of white supremacy are very, very vast. But anyway, he's tripping. But we're going to go on with his trip. Buchanan argues that the decline of the Christian faith, see, there we go. I hadn't even gotten that far. When he's talking about varying beliefs, differing beliefs, It's the rejection of Christianity as it has been taught by white people. So there's a rejection of it that's growing. So now they come in as the so-called differing belief, differing thought. We don't want to accept them anymore. So we're wrong, or they're wrong, or whatever. And that's happened mostly among black and brown people. Buchanan argues that the decline of the Christian faith is the primary cause of low birth rates, hopelessness, and political utopianism. He cites examples of anti-Christian sentiment, such as the negative reactions to Catholic films and the triumphant attitude of secularism. According to Buchanan, Western man has decided he can disobey God without consequences and become his own God. And at the same time, the new hedonism seems unable to give people a reason to go on living. He depicts the United States as a country divided between the old culture and the new, with little contact or debate between two diametrically opposed systems of thought. Now, I'm going to tell you why I kind of agree with him on this. Yeah. We have a world now that has fallen into chaos because there are no boundaries, there are no rules. Everything is fluid. Even though God gave boundaries, even though the source creator gave boundaries to everything, even the universe has boundaries. They may be vast boundaries, but they're there. Because there's no shame. People don't have any shame anymore. There's no shame. People aren't shamed. That's one of the reasons we got problems, really, because nobody has any shame anymore. So in that way, I can understand, but he says it from a religious standpoint. Religion has been that which has been used to control people, society, and to control and oppress and suppress the masses of black and brown people around the world. So he really means that people have lost their way according to how white people designed it. Not really how God designed it, but that's his framing. His framing is God. And that's how they do. Because, the Ku Klux Klan are the Christian Knights of the Ku Klux Klan. A lot of white people were, they were religious. They were Protestant and Jews. They had slaves. So the death of the West is what people like Pat Buchanan see because of, he said, right here it says, Buchanan argues that the decline of the Christian faith is the primary cause of low birth rates. He wasn't talking about black people when he's talking about the birth rates. He basically is saying to white people, come back to the way that we had it back in the early 1900s or something. So then you had this person, what's his name? Donald Trump comes in and says, okay, yeah, we want to make America great again. Because what he's saying is, yo, we want to make it great. Make it like it used to be. Make America like it used to be. Meaning, when you couldn't look a white man in the eyes and, that kind of mess. They want total control. Period. Point blank. And that's what he means when he's saying that. So around this idea of white supremacy, there is this trope, this belief that black and brown people are going to replace white people. So you know what they do? They organize. They organize. Guess what they do? They organize. Time magazine cover. Locked and Loaded, the secret world of extreme militants. They organize and they say, we're going to pick up guns. We're going to be organized, not for a foreign threat. Not for a foreign threat. For the black and the brown. And guess what we do? Now, you know what? I won't say I don't like Roland Martin. He kind of gets on my nerves a little bit. But he has this book called White Fear. How the browning of America is making white folks lose their minds. The only thing about a person, I haven't read his book on that, but the only thing about a person like him is that maybe I'm a little, everybody ain't gonna be Malcolm X, you know what I mean? Everybody ain't gonna be Farrakhan. But I mean, he's just kind of soft to me on the race issue. You know. But that is a truth that, I mean, you know, as far as the book that he's writing or that he wrote, you know. So when it comes to white people, and like I said, even the common white person, something that they understand is that being replaced, they do have a fear of black people. And it's not just because they think that most black men are criminals. They are innately afraid of genetic annihilation. Go get Dr. Cress Welsing's book, The ISIS Papers. I'm gonna read from it next on my one of the next upcoming podcasts. But like I said, this is not a new thing for them. They've been afraid of black people. In fact, Time magazine had a cover in 1960. This is during the Civil Rights Movement. This is during the Civil Rights Movement. They had a cover talking about the same thing that they were talking about in 85 and 90 and 93 and even recently. I mean, they've been talking about it 3 or 4 times a decade. Every decade they talk about the population. And Time magazine, like I said, was the premier news agency, really. When you got to write up in Time, or you were Time magazine was the thing. It was almost like the show 60 Minutes, just in a magazine. The reporting, everything, you know, was supposed to be like premier stuff. And it's been like that. So like I said, when Time Magazine is putting these articles out or putting these covers out in these articles talking about population growth and black people and brown people growing in population in the United States, it wasn't just about informing the nation. I don't believe it was. I believe it was a call, not so much a call to arms, but it was letting white people know this is on the horizon. What are you going to do? Because the same people who run Time Magazine, like I said, the media is a propaganda arm of white supremacy. As far back, guess when this was? This was 1960, January 11th, 1960. You see that woman in the middle right there, almost middle? Almost middle is a black woman with no shirt on. Ain't that some shit? They got a black woman on here with no shirt on with a baby suckling. She's feeding the child. These images can be looked at as almost stereotypical, although they have some basis in fact. Like, I'm sure this may be a woman from, Africa, as is that woman here. Another look like she's from India. Another look like she's from, an Asian country, a Latin country. I see all of that, but guess what it says? That population explosion. Time Magazine at that time was a weekly news magazine. That population explosion, and it has these people on it. Look how they got the white woman to my left, right here. Her and her children. So wholesome, But then she's surrounded by all these people of color. She's under threat. She's under threat. This is 1960. This is 1960. They're talking about the population explosion in 1960. Most of the people that's listening to my voice right now weren't even born. Most of the people that tune into this and look at this recorded podcast they weren't even born. This is 1960. Most of the people, they weren't born. Some maybe were, but most weren't. And they're still talking about their population explosion. Because this is 1960 when they started, they've been knowing this for centuries. For centuries. Check a few things out. The politics of the darkening America, race against time. This is a black brother that wrote this. I haven't read it yet, but just the title. Look at this person. She's an American politician, I think in Arizona. She made comments about saving America from the black and the brown after the shooting in Buffalo. Here's another politician, Arizona Senator Sylvia Allen, who had previously advocated for mandatory church attendance, warns GOP colleagues about the browning of America. She may have said something about that, but she ain't telling them something they don't already know. This is a part of their education into white supremacy. is this so-called replacement theory, looking at the browning of America. That's what immigration is all about. Immigration is about the browning of America. They don't mind if whites come here. They fine with that. They can be illegal, but not the brown ones. They're afraid of that. You know what these guys were, right? You know what these guys were? You know that when they seized the Capitol on January 6th, was it last year, a couple of years ago? They got the Capitol. This is the Militia. They don't style themselves as white. They don't say that they're white supremacists. They want to make it seem like it's about justice and freedom. Don't go for that, man. Don't go for that. You know. Remember these guys? You know what they were chanting, right? They will not replace us. They will not replace us. Replacement. They're afraid. They are afraid. And guess what? Like I said, they should be. Should they go killing people? Listen, I'm going to tell you like this here. My thought is, to the question, should they go killing people because they're scared of us? My thought about that is, I don't have a thought about that. The thought that comes to mind, if indeed I have one, is that we should be in a position to defend ourselves, our neighborhoods, our women, our children. And the man, the black man, is going to have to lead that. That's my thought. How about that? And check it. You got some black people. They roll with the white boys. Because you see, he got his hand over his heart, right? Because he believes in some ideal of America that is not what is, he believes in the idea of America that is actual equality and justice for all. But see, these white folk, they believe in equality and justice. See, they don't mind if they're in a position to distribute justice and equality. They just don't want actual justice and equality. It has to be under white rule. And some of us are okay with that. We really just want a more comfortable place in white supremacy. That's how a lot of black people are. They don't mind being ruled by white people. They just want to be, they just want to have the good things under white supremacy. And they fine. They don't care about the rulership. See, white people care about the rulership. Y'all call it white, or a lot of people, I shouldn't say y'all. A lot of people call it white privilege. White privilege. Uh-oh. Sorry. Diversity explosion. How new racial demographics are remaking America. This is what they're afraid of. Hopefully on the next podcast, I'll get into more about what we should do when it comes to the threat of white supremacy in our communities. What we should do. As a black man, I happen to think that masculinity, masculine black men, are rare. Maybe I shouldn't use the word rare. We don't have a lot of masculinity floating around. We don't have a lot of the masculine and feminine imbalance is the basis for our issues. And it has been made that way. I'll get into that also. I'm going to get into abortions. The Supreme Court leaked out what their probable decision would be on Roe versus Wade. I want to talk about that. I want to talk about abortion. Why are conservatives so really, they at a fever pitch as to overturning it? Well, guess what? What I've just talked about when it comes to population, that's a part of it. But then why are Democrats so with it? Because on the other side of the coin is killing black babies. Democrats are with that. But conservatives are about trying to make sure that white girls don't go and kill their children. So it's a little thing. They're willing to get rid of Roe versus Wade, at least until what they look at as a population of white people starts kind of growing a little bit. Take abortion off of the table. Anyway, I'm going to get into that. What I like to do, though, is when it comes to the 10 victims of the Buffalo massacre, we can't continue to allow people to hurt us. We have to defend ourselves. We have to. The militants and the white supremacists and all these people, they're more organized than we are. And they do everything in their power on every level to make sure that we are not organized. They contribute heavily to our disunity. But understand, when this young white supremacist went in there and started killing our brothers and sisters, our mothers and fathers, our grandparents, our cousins, when he went in there and started doing that, the only thing he was concerned with was what color they were. He didn't care if you was a Moor or you didn't think you were black or you thought you was black or you were, a Christian, a Muslim. He didn't care about none of that. There was one thing he was on his mind, and that was this. That was the color of your skin. So I hate, it saddens me, as it saddened many of us. But it really seems like a lot of us are just so numb to it. It happens, 2 days later, we just back at the same foolishness, or same stuff that we was doing. There's no real concentration on it for a lot of us. I've watched social media, I've looked. But I won't forget them. I won't forget none of them. And if I won't forget them, whether I know their names or not. But just like throughout history, our people have been massacred for simply being black. Join me next time, this Sunday, the 22nd of May, for my live stream on YouTube, youtube.com/Alacina World Media. follow me at Masculine Militia on Instagram. And I'm setting up my Twitter. I had an issue with the Twitter, so I didn't put it on there just yet, but Twitter coming soon. I'd like to thank you for listening. And please leave comments. Let me know if there's something that, you know, that we need to talk about or we need to have some commentary about. I would appreciate it. I would appreciate it. And if you have any kind of questions or anything like that, you can actually email me, info@alacinaworldmedia.com. info@alacinaworldmedia.com. In fact, we're going to have other emails where you can do that also. And you can also go to my website. We're updating it now. Some things I want different on it. A lot of things I want different on it. But it's alacinaworldmedia.com. Go there, and once you go, we're going to start having a lot of things to happen. You know, a lot of changes on there, hopefully for the better, of course. And but a lot is coming soon. A lot is coming soon. We're going to have a lot coming soon. So I'll talk about that another time. But thank you for joining me and looking at this recording. And peace and hair grease.